Welcome to Between the Sheets, the non-judgmental podcast where we're going to cover various sexual health and wellness topics. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Zwonitzer. I'm a urology and sexual health nurse practitioner, and I love helping my patients and listeners discover and develop their most satisfying sexual experiences. Between the Sheets is here to normalize the conversations about sexual health and cover everything from basic anatomy to the most taboo topics and everything in between. Real talk, real pleasure, one episode at a time. So come on, let's get between the sheets. This episode is sponsored by Boston Scientific and its educational website on erectile dysfunction, edcure.com. One study estimated that more than 50% of men over the age of 40 have some degree of erectile dysfunction, which can be frustrating and confusing. Go to edcure.com to find information on erectile dysfunction and treatment options, including long-term treatment options offered by Boston Scientific. Boston Scientific does not endorse any statements or opinions expressed during this episode. Hey there, welcome back to Between the Sheets. We have a guest with us today. Please help me welcome Tami Kiekhaefer. She is a licensed social worker. She is a seasoned psychotherapist with nearly 25 years of private practice experience. She's the author of 2 empowering books. The first one is From Chaos to Calm, a 6-step strategy to break through anxiety. And the other one is Preparing for the Jungle, avoiding snakes and pitfalls on the path to healthy love. As the host of the podcast Unguarded Minds, Tami offers practical insights to help individuals overcome anxiety, depression, trauma, and relationship challenges while building confidence and resilience to face whatever life throws their way. Welcome, Tami.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. I'm excited to have you here because we certainly know that mental health affects our sex lives, our drive, all of those things. So I'm really excited to kind of talk through some things. I have had depression and anxiety for years and years, and I'm in a really good place with it right now. But just last week, I had a day where it was just like my meltdown day. And I can't tell you the last time I had one of those. And so it's even when we're in a good phase, even when we're in, a great season of life, I have wonderful things occurring for me right now. You can still have these bad moments. And there is no way, shape, or form that I would have had sex with anyone on Friday
Yeah.
when I was in my mood. So I am so excited to have you here and kind of talk through this. So tell me, what do you see most in your clients? What are they coming to see you for?
People come to see me. Well, people come to see me for all reasons: depression, anxiety, just life stresses, couples, family issues. But I think, when we're talking about sex and sex drive and connection, and I think of couples who come to me who just feel completely disconnected. And usually, big generalization, but it's the man that wants to have sex and it's the woman that's like, don't touch me. And they can get into this spiral, and men can, any kind of denial or rejection of sex is a very deep rejection. So people come to me like, we're not connecting and I don't know why. And I want to connect, but I don't. I want to have sex, but I don't. So there's so many layers to sex and relationships.
Absolutely. And I think, it's interesting that you bring up the mismatched libidos, because a lot of times in my patients that I see in the urology world, I will see that as well. But sometimes it's the women bringing it up first and saying, I want to have sex, but by the end of the day, I'm too tired. I've done all this. I've done, and from my guys who come in, you're right. They're like, I'm so sick of being told no. I've just stopped asking. So how do you help them find this common ground where they can come back together?
I try to help them figure out the why behind the behavior. And I think that, from what I'm understanding and experiencing personally and with my clients, is that it does require a lot of vulnerability. It requires a lot of trust. And I think that I use a diagram, but I talk about it as the foundation of a relationship. But if you think about one big square and then you divide it into 4 squares, the foundation of any relationship is good communication, trust, respect, and appreciation. And then in the middle, where there's the intersection, is intimacy. And I feel like if any of those foundational aspects, first, the thing that separates a romantic couple relationship from, I don't know, a boss or neighbor or,
Sure.
whatever is intimacy.
Hmm.
But intimacy requires so much vulnerability. So if you're not feeling, connected in your communication, if trust isn't always just, are you cheating on me? That's like different topics and a whole different ballgame that we have to talk about. But just trusting atmosphere.
Hmm.
If you don't feel appreciated, if you don't feel respected, a lot of times, no matter male or female, you're like, I don't want anyone to touch me right now.
Right.
So, yeah, we have to work through a lot of those foundational aspects before we can get to the intimacy and lack of sex drive.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, the lack of intimacy and sex drive can be symptoms of bigger relational issues. Got it. Got it.
And in my world, usually that's the case. And,
Yeah.
you're working with a medical and neurology. And so a lot of times there's other aspects that come up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's why I was saying there's so many layers, and it does take, some digging apart and microscoping to figure out what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so do you find that any one of those pillars is more likely to cause intimacy issues than any of the others, or are they all really intertwined?
I feel like they're very intertwined. I think communication bleeds into all of it. I think I just had to draw it so that it looked a little better aesthetic wise, but
Yeah.
communication is huge.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
you can and communication isn't just the verbiage that comes out of your mouth, but it's your tone and your presentation and validating and being heard and listened to. And so, I mean, there's body language, eye contact. There's so many aspects of communication. So, I guess if I had to choose, I'd say that communication is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I would agree. I think communication for me is huge. I always talk about consent on here and how you need communication for that. And I like that what you were saying about trust, that it's not just, are you cheating on me or not? Because for me, it's people who want to explore something different or who just want to say, hey, I really liked this last time we did this. I don't so much like it this way, or I like firmer pressure, softer pressure, whatever. If they got resistance from that partner when sharing something along the line, they're going to be less likely to open up and be vulnerable and share that and trust that their partner will hear that and not take offense to it. Oh, I didn't do it right again, but to learn and to grow together. I think it's so important to have that availability of your partner's support to say, here I am, I'm being vulnerable, and I need to trust my vulnerability to you.
Oh, yeah. And those conversations are really hard. You and I talk about sex all day long,
Right.
but in the average relationship, people don't. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think there could be how you grew up or being kind of shy or shameful
Hmm.
or guilt, or there's some of those deep seated aspects that keep people from being able to say, let me tell you what I like and let me tell you what I don't like. But no, you bring up such an excellent point where the other person also has to receive that constructive criticism,
Hmm.
because it is such a fragile topic of conversation. And yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. They have to be able to receive that. And it's not a character flaw, it's just everybody's different.
Yeah. Yeah. And to not take it as an ego thing, right? It's not that I didn't touch my partner correctly. It's just they have a way that they prefer to be touched. And that's okay. I have
Exactly.
a way I prefer to be touched. But you're right. I mean, you and I are very comfortable talking about this, but I even struggle sometimes with relationships I've had talking about it with a partner who I'm not sure is as open about it as I am, or who will receive what I have to say in a kind and loving manner.
Hmm.
So even though this is my field, I still struggle with it. So of course, I understand how other people do. And I think it's really breaking down those barriers and getting it to be that it's just a normal part of conversation to talk about your sex life.
Yeah. And just as you talked about, the other day you had kind of a funk day where your
Hmm.
depression, anxiety stuff came up and it really took you down. And I have those also. And it's just because we talk about it doesn't mean we've got these fantastic, perfect
Right. Right.
situations, because life does happen,
Hmm.
and so I think that you have to also be aware of where you're coming from and what's coming up for you, because again, how you're communicating it, if you're being kind of puzzly, or you're not being very
Mm-hmm.
direct, and the other person has no idea really what you're talking about. So then they're creating a story of what you think that what they think that you're trying to say,
Right.
but then you could be wrong. Or if you come across in more of a, this is super uncomfortable, I'm just going to throw something at you, then the other person could get defensive, and then there goes the conversation. So it's just really understanding how comfortable with sex are you, and not just sex. I mean, intimacy has so many
Yes.
layers to it also. Yeah. A
Yep.
closeness. Some people like to snuggle. Some people are like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I need my space. I'm too hot. Get away from me.
Right.
And then the other person takes it personally. Or
Mm-hmm.
I have clients too where it's like they're uncomfortable talking about it. So maybe one of them kind of hovers a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
the other person's like, you're only hovering because you want to have sex.
Right.
And or toes touched in bed, and now it's like, oh, now I gotta have sex.
Yeah.
And so then you're both on your own side of the bed, and because there is so much more of a need to communicate around what's really
Mm-hmm.
going on and what are you looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so important. How would you suggest a couple who really hasn't had many sex conversations? How do you start that for them? Do you have any exercises or like 3 questions to start with or anything like that to get the ball rolling?
It's probably something that I should develop. Like, here's your 3 questions to start with to just make it easier. But no,
Right. I need it right
I
now.
think that
Develop it on the spot.
I need it right now. Chat GBT.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I think, I try to talk a little bit when they're very uncomfortable talking about having sex and what feels good and what doesn't feel good and what they like and how they like to be approached or initiate or whatever. Sometimes I'll start a little bit lighter as far as how often do you sit together on the couch? What does intimacy look like? If you felt connected to your partner, what would that look like? And so I'll try to get them to really think about what they're even looking for. Sometimes we'll talk about how'd you grow up? Were your parents intimate with each other? Did they hold hands? Did you see them sitting on the couch? Did you see them kiss? Did you see them just kind of playing around? Did you see them, I mean, there's obviously, then you've got the other side where kids are exposed to like way more. And then that's another conversation, but it
Yes.
still
Yeah.
affects them.
For
It
sure.
absolutely affects them going forward. And so it's sort of like, what did you grow up with as far as whatever intimacy looks like? And what did you bring from that into your adult life
Hmm.
around where's your comfort level? What's appropriate? What's not appropriate? Do you like PDA? Do you hate PDA? So, what are your own belief systems around it? Other factors include, if your parents or caregivers, whoever, if they were struggling with some mental illness, if they're struggling with some addiction, if one person worked all the time, if they, so I think that
Hmm.
yes, intimacy is also what did you experience growing up, and what's your belief system going forward? Spirituality,
Hmm.
religion can definitely be a factor. Yeah. So I try to
Yeah.
explore all of the avenues that they
Hmm.
can connect with their whatever it is that they're looking for a little bit better, because I think then they can communicate what they're needing from their partner a little bit easier.
Yeah, I really like what you're talking about what we were exposed to growing up, because I think we forget that that has such an impact on us. And whether you saw healthy or unhealthy love, and if love was even expressed around you. And then the other part that you said was the religious part, that I grew up in a very Catholic household, and the purity culture was very specific that you wait until you're married, and that was the
Right.
education that was taught. It wasn't learn about your own body. It wasn't, it's okay to have sex before you're married, or to have more than one partner at a time if that's what makes you happy or whatever. It was very specific, and this is the right way, the only way, this is how you will do it. And it takes a while to break out of that mold, even if it doesn't sit right with you. You've heard the one teaching for so many years of your life that it takes a long time to work through that and unravel it, and then start to figure out what you feel. And then to be in a
Right.
relationship, and now you have to try and communicate that with someone. Oh my goodness, that's a lot.
Yes. That's huge. That's huge. And since there is that one way of thinking, anything outside of that, and you feel shameful, you feel
Mhm.
like you're doing something wrong, you feel like a bad person, you feel like, oh my gosh, does anyone else have these thoughts, and does
Yeah.
anyone else feel this? And so then there goes your confidence. And then you're second guessing yourself all the time. So it is super important to understand what you were exposed to growing up and then how it affects you. And I think that's the best part of being an adult is you get to look back and go, all right, I learned all these things. Some were good, some may not, maybe weren't
Yeah.
that great. But I have the ability to shift things, change things so that I can be more authentic in myself.
Yeah. That's amazing. And it really is. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to process what
A lot
we've
of
been
work.
taught, to figure out
Mhm.
what we actually believe, and then to live in a way that aligns with us.
Right. Yes. Yeah. But, I don't know, time goes by anyways. So you can keep doing something that's not working for you, or you can start your journey and start making some small shifts and immediately start feeling better and then building into a new confidence. So time's
Yeah,
ticking anyways. How do you want
that's
to
right.
spend your time?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have couples that come to you with specific things like maybe one partner has a pornography addiction, or there has been an extramarital affair, or that was not agreed upon, right? Some people have open relationships, but in a situation where
Uh-huh.
that's not allowed, do you work with people like that as well and counsel them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think well, first of all, I think people come in saying, I'm feeling disconnected from my partner. But by the third session, we're really digging into why. And
Hmm.
those types of things don't typically come out on the first session. And so, one, I would encourage people you didn't have these aha moments in the first session, just hang in there because we're going to get into the deeper stuff, but there's got to be a
Hmm.
trust because
You mean
bringing these
therapy
things up
isn't
can
just
be.
one session and you're fixed?
I have had people who come in with that expectation and it's really tough.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh my goodness. There is way too much going
It's
up
a
on in here. We're not getting through that in one 30 or 60-minute session.
and then it's Tammy, what's wrong with you? Right. Yeah, and it can take a couple, it can take a little
Yeah.
bit of time. So I always think it's taking you this much time to get to where you are. It's going to take you this much time to sort of figure some things out.
Yeah.
But yeah, by the time that, people are willing to open up and be honest about things, there's definitely things like sex addiction, porn addiction. There's aspects where someone has been cheating on their partner, but they haven't come clean with anything. But then all of a sudden they get caught. And then there's a bunch of trust factors that need to get solved and untangled. I've had clients who have wanted, one person wants an open relationship and the other person doesn't. So we try to navigate through that. I've had clients who are coming out as bi or gay or lesbian or trans or, who. So I think their situation is their situation. And
Hmm.
I try to help them feel as comfortable as they possibly can to talk about what's going on because we can't work through anything if I only know what I know. And so
Right.
when people can really be honest about what's going on, then we can say, okay, thank you. Now I'm getting a clearer picture. Let's change the dialogue a little bit and figure out, where you are and what needs to where you want oops and where you want to go from here.
Hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about the porn addiction. So how do you help
Okay.
someone kind of work through that? I mean, I guess there's solo work too, right? You got to work through the
Mhm.
addiction part of it, and then there's the work
Mhm.
together as a couple to rebuild that trust. So how do you start getting someone to say, this is a problem for me. I don't just watch it here and there. It's something I need.
Mhm.
I can't get off without it. How do you start to peel
Yeah.
that about apart?
One, I think is the awareness that you are struggling with it and that it's a problem. But I think, I look at any kind of addiction as you're using that to avoid the bigger issue or you're using it as a coping mechanism. So what are you coping from? What are you
Okay.
guarding yourself against? So is it anxiety? Is it depression? Is it confidence? Do you not trust yourself? Is it the quick fix? Is it the external validation that you're looking for?
Hmm.
Because I think that sometimes people start out watching porn and then it's, getting off really quickly and whatever, but it's very much a fantasy. So then they come into their relationship and they expect that same feedback or treatment
Hmm.
or reaction, and then when they don't get it, their relationship takes a dive because it's like, you're the same old person, but there's something a whole lot more new and exciting and interesting over here. So it can be, I think any addiction, it can definitely be a coping mechanism, but also an avoidance of the bigger issue. And so I try to look at it in that sense of, I people are going to deal with their coping strategies and their addiction very differently. So again, it wouldn't be realistic for me to say to some clients, okay, here's zero porn, just
Hmm.
cut it off. Or I've got to figure out where they are first and what they're
Yeah,
willing to and what's realistic. Otherwise, that's a big setup to fail. But
sure.
they're really setting their goals and strategies, and I'm encouraging them to really kind of push themselves a little bit more to get out of this comfort zone that they've created for themselves that really isn't that comfortable because it's causing so many more problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see guys in my office for this who have an orgasm dysfunction because of it. They can only achieve orgasm with masturbation with a specific type of porn
Uh-huh.
because that's what they do and that's what they enjoy the most. And then they come into a partnered situation and it's not the same as the porn that they watch. The pressure or intensity or whatever isn't the same as what they do for themselves while they're watching that porn. And so they cannot achieve orgasm with their partner. And that can cause issues too, because the partner's thinking, what's wrong with me? They don't love me. I'm not good enough, things like that. So I've seen it from, an orgasm standpoint as well, that it gets really difficult. And one of the first suggestions we have is stop masturbating, stop watching porn for a while, get your mind back to where partnered sex, real life partnered sex, not
Real
watching it,
life.
is what turns you on, is what gets you off. And that has been a struggle for a lot of my male patients.
Well, and there's no pressure. I think that men put a lot of pressure on themselves, and maybe sometimes it's the partner putting pressure on the men to perform, to have
Hmm.
an erection, to keep an erection, to hold on to the erection. So I think that there's, from a woman's standpoint, you can fake it. Men
Hmm.
can't
Yeah.
really fake it. And so I think that there is probably more pressure on to live up to their own expectations, but also to their partner's expectations. When you're watching porn, it's all you. It's a one-sided deal. You don't care about the other person because there's no watching something. So there's zero pressure. So you're absolutely right. I think that the interaction between people is so crucial as far as working through things that are holding you back. But again, porn, if that's the only way you can have an orgasm, there's a ton of avoidance that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's interesting because you mentioned, the getting, maintaining, and all of that with the erections. And of course, working in urology, I see that all the time as well. And that is one of the things that we have to work through. Is it, do you need a constriction ring or a cock ring to be able to maintain that erection? Do you need medication? Do we need to, change your habits, things like that, to be
Mhm.
able to successfully maintain that erection? And sometimes it's the guys bringing their wives in so that I can tell them he is still attracted to you and loves you and wants to have sex with
Mhm.
you. He just physically is having blood flow issues. And we have to help him
Yeah.
with that.
Yes. And I'm a big proponent of check out the medical part first, because if it
Hmm.
is a medical issue, that could be a quick fix. And then your confidence and your relationship and your comfort level, that just comes back because you've solved the medical part. So I absolutely say it's a biopsychosocial type lifestyle that we all
Yeah.
live. And biologically you gotta make sure that all your parts are functioning,
Yeah.
from head to toe, no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I will have guys who, especially younger guys, where I know, they should have healthy blood flow. They have normal blood pressure. They're not on all kinds of
Mm.
medicines. And so I know it's more of a psychological ED or orgasm issue. But I will still give them, their medication to help them get that confidence back. And then of course I'm sending them to people like you so that they can get the therapy side of it as well. But there's nothing wrong with needing a little confidence boost, even
Right.
whether it's short
Right.
term or long term.
Right. And as long as you're using it the way that a doctor is prescribing, and you're also getting therapy, I'm not a fan of, here's your Xanax, here's your
Right.
anti-anxiety meds, and hope you don't get an addiction, but don't worry about therapy. It's
Yeah.
like a medicine is only going to do so much for you, but it's going to do enough so that then you can put your tools and techniques into place, and then the combination of it is super helpful.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. Okay. So kind of talked through the porn and addiction that way. How about you had brought up the one person wants an open relationship, the other person doesn't. How do you navigate that? That's got to be really tricky.
It's a tough one. I mean, I think that that's kind of like, are you a little bit pregnant?
Yeah.
Like you either are or you're not.
Right. Right.
You're either in an open relationship or you're cheating on your partner. So
Yes.
it's a tough one because a lot of times that could be the beginning of an end to a relationship.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's happened where the open relationship comes into play because they're not happy with their partner, but they don't want to leave their partner. It's like, I don't want to lose you, but you're not filling my bucket.
Yeah.
And so it could be a couples issue, it could be creating a new intimacy, it could be creating more excitement in your relationship. It could be, and that could be anything from going on a date night to taking walks together to, I'm not a fan of scheduling sex, and if anyone has any kind of trauma, that's a completely different story. But sometimes the longer you go without having sex, the more weird it is. And now it's like,
Yeah.
do I put my hand here? Do I put my hand here? Do I,
Yeah.
like what? I don't even know what to do anymore. So sometimes we can complicate sex and make it
Mhm.
very complicated, where sometimes it's more of just a simplicity issue, and it's just sort of get back into the habit of doing it.
Yeah.
But if you don't see each other, if you come home from work and you immediately get on your screens and you're watching TV and you're playing your game on your phone, you have nothing to talk about. And so that
Right.
gets back to the foundational part. Or, if someone is like constantly picking up the other person's stuff, or there's you don't have help around the house,
Mhm.
or you don't have any like alone time, like guy time, girl time. I mean, there's so many factors, but yeah, I think that we have to talk about the relationship and why they might want an open
Mhm.
relationship. And yeah, I've had couples that's the end of the relationship because the other person's like, that's a non-negotiable
Yeah.
for me. And then sometimes they're entertaining it. Open relationships can be really tough just because
Mhm.
there has to be a ton of communication. And
Mhm.
communication is hard anyway. You and I can leave this podcast and you'll remember some things and I'll remember some things.
Yeah.
So I think that you add intimacy and connection and vulnerability and trust into the game, and yeah, you've got it can I've seen successful open relationships.
Mhm.
In all honesty, I probably have seen less successful relationships. But when everyone is on the same board and you're
Mhm.
communicating and you're making it a point to be successful with it,
Mhm.
it could work.
Do you think it's more successful if at the very beginning of the relationship they have that conversation and they know that that's something that they're going to participate in versus being unhappy in the relationship or having something missing and then wanting to start an open relationship when you already have an established partnership?
In my experiences, yes. If
Yeah.
you come into it with, both people are on board, yeah, because when it's proposed, into a relationship, there's already trust issues
Yeah.
typically. And the other person is like, wait, what? Wait, what? Why? What
Right.
am I, and so there's already just that level of like the defenses start coming
Yeah.
up, and then maybe there's some explaining to do, and well, I met this person, and that, I mean, there's just way more to work through. but
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I think that if both people, they've had experiences with open relationships in their past, and they've been okay with it, and it's something they feel like they could juggle, I think the chances are better.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. I think I know personally I would feel super offended and hurt and get very defensive if a partner I was in a relationship with all came to me and was like, "Hey, by the way, I'd like to start screwing other people or I want to go on
Yeah.
dates with other people." Like that would be very difficult for me. I know I went out to on a date with a guy who we had been talking for a while. And on our first date, he told me he was in an open relationship and living with this woman.
Mm.
That's not something that I personally can deal with. It's just not, I need to
Okay.
be a monogamous person. It's just who I am. And
Mm-hmm.
I have friends who are in open relationships who do great, whatever. Everybody gets to do their own thing and be happy, whatever works for you. For me, it doesn't
Right.
work. And I was
Yeah.
so frustrated with him for not having shared that with me because we'd been texting and talking on the phone for
Yeah.
weeks. And he said,
Yes.
"Well, I wanted to share that in person. I felt like that was an in person discussion." Well, maybe
Mm-hmm.
the ifs, ands, or buts, the ins and outs of it can be an in person discussion. But I know myself well enough to know that there is no point in going into this because I'm not going to be
Mm-hmm.
okay in this relationship. And so I
Right.
was really
Right.
bothered by that. So I can only imagine if I were in this committed relationship with someone and he comes home one day and is like, "Hey, by the way, I'm going to jump on Tinder here real quick and I'm going to start going on dates." I would be so hurt and offended. So, yeah, I would be calling you up and being like, "We need an appointment."
Right, right. Yeah. And I think that, when I also help people, confidence and knowing your non negotiables of what you want in a relationship, I have kind of a playbook for people to run by before you even get out there in the dating world, because you have to know what you want. And for someone to show up after texting and whatever and say, "Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm also living with somebody," there's a whole lot of dishonesty already going on, because that is absolutely something that you owe your partner or a potential partner to
Yeah.
say, "Here's everything." Whether it's wanting kids, having kids, an
Mhm.
open relationship, "I'm planning on moving across the country. By the way, I thought I might share that with you." I mean, these big major things in relationships, if you're not being honest, you have to ask yourself, why am I hiding this? Because that's what it is. It's hiding it. And there
Yeah,
might be a
absolutely.
fear of them feeling like, well, she might not want to go out with me again. Well, she might not want to, but thank you, because that's honesty. Yeah.
Right. And we all need to be in control of what we are okay with. And by
Mhm.
not telling me that, you didn't give me that opportunity to let you know whether or not
Yeah.
I would be okay with it. Because then you put me in an
Right.
awkward situation where I'm sitting at a table with you and now I don't even want to be here,
Right. Check,
you
please.
know? Yeah, exactly. I don't really. So, yeah, that's my own personal.
Yeah.
We'll have our own session
Agreed.
later, but
But it's true. I mean, right off the
yeah,
bat, there's dishonesty. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's hard enough to be out there in the dating world and just, is your profile picture really who you are? Are we going to
yep,
meet somewhere? I don't want to be in a car with you yet. I don't know anything. Are
yeah,
you living with somebody? Am I your
exactly.
side person? I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much anyways. Like,
There
why
is.
not
And
just
I
be
love all
honest
the
up
there's so
front?
many different memes and stuff out there about like dating in 2025. Are you single single? Are you still hung up on your ex single? Are you still sharing a dog with your ex single? Are you like, all these things. And it's so true. It's so true. I'm single and I'm in the dating world and it is. You find somebody who, yeah, I'm getting a divorce. Well, they haven't even filed for it yet. Or, yeah, I still live with my ex, but it's just because we can't afford another place right now. Okay, well, I don't want to get involved in that situation. I'm not coming over to hang out with you and your ex girlfriend. Like, come on.
And it's so interesting. Like, a lot of times people justify and rationalize their situation. And so to them, they don't think they're doing anything wrong, because to them, it's like they've explained it to 400 people before you come
Right.
along. So they're just like, "Oh, yeah, here's the deal," which
Yep.
again, it is fine for some people. You have to know what your non negotiables are, and you never compromise your non negotiables, because that's just taking a chunk out of your confidence and like throwing it on the floor.
Yes. And I've done that. I have made excuses for people. Oh, well, yeah, divorce does take a long time or whatever. And then a couple months down the road, I'm sitting there being like, "You dummy, you knew you didn't want this in the beginning and you still let yourself go down this road and now you have to get yourself out of it instead of just saying no from the beginning and not getting feelings involved and not getting involved in someone else's life." And so I like that. I like non-negotiables, just really you have to stick to that.
Mhm. And it's hard. It's hard because when you're trying to meet somebody and you're out there and someone matches with you, and then you start having conversations, and then there's this chemistry because you're like, wow, you're so hot, and they're
Yeah.
like saying the same thing, and you go, well, I didn't really want that, but it's okay, it'll be fine. And
Right.
so then you rationalize and justify it, and I've done that also. Yep.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
I had a relationship a long time ago, and oh my gosh, I can't believe I stayed as long as I did, but I did, and it was a big learning experience. But he would call me up, and he would be super nice, like, what do you want to do tonight, this weekend, da da da, and just whatever. And then maybe 10 minutes later, he'd call me up, and you call me names, you're sleeping with so and so, you're da da, and I'd just be like, what is happening? And
Yeah.
I justified it and justified it. Well, it turns out he not only was doing cocaine, and then there's the little behavior shift, but then I found out he was selling it. And I was like, Tammy, God, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
And once yeah, well, it was my friends who were pointing it out. I'm like, no, there's no way. But yeah, you do what you do. But I will guarantee you, when you do that work and you know what you want and what you don't want, any flavor of that little manipulative, what am I trying to say?
Yeah.
That behavior, you're like, absolutely not. It smacks you in the face and you go, never again, never
Yeah.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I'm intrigued. You said that you have this checklist that you have people go by. Talk to me about that, because I am in the dating world. So what's
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
list that I need to know before I go on a date?
So let's see. Okay, so this is basically my first book, is the Preparing for the Jungle one.
Mhm.
So I think that, so as I start out my book, you have to do your own checklist for yourself to just see, like, where am I with myself? And then after the book, it's a workbook. So then after the book, then you have this checklist that you take out and you apply to other people who you meet. So it's
Okay.
basically like, where's my confidence level? Am I optimistic? Am I pessimistic? Am I realistic? Am I oh, I have to think about this. Basically, like, what do I
I put you on
want?
the
Do I
spot.
want somebody? Totally. I know, I'm like, I can't remember, that was a long time ago. Hold on. I have it. Okay, so here's the checklist. So I'll go through it.
Okay, perfect.
So, inspection checklist, there has to be respect. Yes,
Okay.
it's all coming back to me. Okay, there has to be respect. You have to be able to self-reflect, because if
Okay.
you're reading this book or you're doing the work,
Mhm.
you're doing it. So you should also be with a partner who's doing it. Chemistry, there's got to be chemistry.
Yeah.
I think that people feel like, oh, am I being shallow or whatever? No, you're not being shallow. If you're not chemically attracted to somebody, then yeah. But those guys that you meet, and for your listeners, men, women, whatever, you meet them and you're like, oh my God, they're like so great to look at. And then they open their mouth and you're like,
Yes.
and they're no longer attractive. So chemistry isn't everything, but you know,
Yeah.
energy level, do you want somebody, like, what's your energy level
Mhm.
and what's their energy level, and is your energy matching?
Okay.
Attitude, like I was talking about, positive, negative, optimistic, pessimistic. So just general attitude in life. What are your morals and values? And you got to know what that is first. What are their morals and values? Being accountable for action, that is huge. If
And
you're being
tough.
and asking yourself, am I accountable for my actions? Which is really hard to do sometimes. But if you're with someone who's not accountable for their actions, I will promise you they are not going to change, because they don't think they're doing anything wrong. So for
Yeah.
someone to say, I am sorry, I apologize, I'm sorry that you're so upset, I apologize for what I did. Being trustworthy, communication skills, and levels of confidence. Confidence, people take a hit with their confidence, you get laid off from your job, you have something horrible happen, you're in a funk, whatever. But, I kind of have a rule for myself, is 80%. And I have to be 80% happy, which allows for a 20% error,
Okay.
room for error. Bad day, whatever. I don't care if it's a pair of shoes. If I'm not 80% happy, yeah, I'm
I
not
love
I'm
that
not
rule.
doing it. Yeah, I don't know. When I abide by it, I feel like I'm honoring myself. So if I'm honoring
Yeah.
myself, I'm going to show up differently in my relationship.
I love that. That's so important. So important. No, these are great tips, and they are absolutely things that I think about, but not necessarily keep in mind all the time. Because, like you say, sometimes you're just very distracted with their looks.
I know. I know.
Yeah. So, no, those are great. So, that was you said that was out of your first book?
Yeah, that's the Preparing for the Jungle one. Uh-huh. Yeah. And I've had clients who will put a sheet of paper and carry it. I've had men who carry it in their wallet or women who carry it in their purse, and they'll whip it out on a date. Like, all right, I'm going through my checklist, and I'm like, do what you got to do. Yeah, because
Yeah.
no one wants to waste time. Yeah.
No. And, that's the thing is dating is not easy. And I mean, like, look, I'm in my 40s. I have two kids. They're almost adults at this point. One of them is. And I have baggage. And I expect any other person in their 40s that I might date is
Yeah.
also going to have baggage. So
Absolutely.
I don't want
Yeah.
to waste time. If we don't
Right.
align and things aren't here, let's not waste each other's time. I don't want to get connected to you and have feelings for you and then have to get over that. Let's lay it all out there. I'm totally supportive of
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about your newer book.
The newer book is about anxiety, and
Okay.
I feel like I've had to live both my books before I write them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so live that one too. But it's when you try to manage the external factors going on in your life, you feel like you're just struggling and you're just spinning. And I'm trying to teach people to manage the internal sense of self, the internal anxiety, the symptoms of anxiety, because when you can manage your symptoms, you can manage your anxiety. And it is a game changer. So, it really starts with awareness. It starts with being able to activate your left brain and not just think that your logic sense and not just, respond and react with an emotional sense. Being able, I'm a certified yoga instructor also, if people are open to it, but into my sessions, but the breath work, the
Mm-hmm.
calming your mind, the single point meditation aspects, and then now you've calmed your mind, you've calmed your body, you've calmed your nervous system. Now you're ready to actually deal with the anxiety factors that are
Mm-hmm.
causing it. But if you just jump in and you're like, I got to fix this and what's wrong with me? And you can just feel like you're even spinning more out of control. And
Yeah.
I help people, when your confidence is high, your anxiety is low. But when
Mm-hmm.
your confidence is high, your anxiety goes down. And so I help people build a sense of confidence. Yeah. And that's just that internal sense of self again.
Yeah, that's so important. And I love that. This is amazing work that you're doing, Tami. So
Thank
we
you.
will put links to the books, links to Tami, all of that in the show notes for you guys so you can be in touch with her and read her great resources. I am definitely going to have to go get that first book because that's just like, it was like ticking with me. So I'm going to have to jump on there and grab that one.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Yeah.
it again, I had to figure out my family roles, my attachment style, personality types, all that stuff. And when you get it and you work through it, it is just you just go out there with an energy that's so much filled with confidence, and energy attracts energy.
Yeah.
And so you'll find somebody who also is at that space where you are.
Yeah, I love that. That's so awesome. Well, we hit a lot
Thank you.
today. This was a great
I
conversation.
know.
Yeah, this
Awesome.
is
I love it.
amazing.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
absolutely. And also, you have a podcast, Unguarded Minds.
Yes, yes. And
Tell,
you have
tell
been
everybody
so
about that.
helpful.
Yeah.
Unguarded Minds is a podcast that I co-host with Desiree Grimaldi, and we have people come on, and it's really just life's messiest things that happen and what you did to overcome it and what you're doing to go help other people with the lessons that you've learned. And so we like to understand, what's your story and what have you been through and how'd you get through it, and now what are you doing with that knowledge that you
I love that. So we'll link that in the show notes as well. And yours truly
have.
is a guest on there in an upcoming
Yes,
episode
she
as
is.
well. So
Yes,
that is very
which will
fun.
be launching soon, I promise.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very exciting. Oh, so everybody, again, this is Tami. She's amazing. We'll have all the links in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here. And everybody, we will see you next time when we get between the sheets. Thank you for joining us and exploring sexual health topics here on Between the Sheets. New episodes are available every Wednesday. Please subscribe and rate our podcast so we can reach more listeners. And don't forget to tell your friends, partners, and anyone who will listen about Between the Sheets. Send any comments, questions, or stories to podcastbetweenthesheets@gmail.com. It's all one word, podcastbetweenthesheets@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and go have some fun between the sheets.